who is watching this right now. Before you answer, with your name, your story, your history, stop. That answer is not what you are. That answer is the problem itself, dressed up as identity. The question, who am I, is not a philosophical inquiry to be answered with concepts. It is a sword that cuts through every layer of false identification until nothing remains but the naked truth of your being. Ramana Maharshi did not offer this question as a meditation technique. He offered it as radical surgery on the tumor of the ego itself. You believe you are a person. This belief is so fundamental, so deeply assumed, that it colors every perception, every thought, every moment of your existence. You wake in the morning, and immediately the story begins. I need coffee. I have work to do. I am tired. I am anxious. This I is taken as self-evident, the most obvious fact of your existence. But Ramana asks you to examine this assumption with ruthless precision. When you say, I am the body, are you the entire body or just a part? Are you the hand? If the hand is amputated, do you cease to exist? Are you the brain? But you are aware of thoughts about the brain, so you must be prior to the brain. The body is an object of your awareness, appearing within consciousness like everything else. You cannot be an object that you perceive. Then perhaps you are the mind. After all, the thoughts feel intimate, personal, closer than the body. My thoughts, my feelings, my memories. But examine this carefully. A thought arises. Where does it come from? You do not manufacture it consciously. It appears spontaneously, like a bird flying across the sky of awareness. You observe the thought. You watch it arise, persist for a moment, and dissolve back into silence. If you are observing the thought, you cannot be the thought. The witness is not the witnessed. The seer is not the seen. Every thought, every emotion, every memory is an object appearing to you. You are the subject, the awareness in which these objects appear. But even this division between subject and object is not final. It is another conceptual overlay on the simplicity of what is. Ramana's inquiry cuts deeper still. Who is the one observing the thoughts? Who is this witness? When you turn attention back on itself, when you search for the observer, what do you find? You find more thoughts. The thought, I am the witness, appears. The sensation of being a subject appears. But these two are objects within consciousness. The ego is nothing but the thought I, arising again and again, claiming ownership of every experience. I am thinking. I am perceiving. I am suffering. But where is this I? Between thoughts. In deep sleep, where is the ego? When thought ceases completely, when there is no mental activity, do you cease to exist? You wake from deep sleep and know that you existed throughout it, even though there was no mind, no ego, no sense of personal identity. What existed in that state? Pure being. Consciousness without content, the self-evident fact of existence prior to all identification. The ego is a movement, a habit, a repetitive pattern of thought that creates the appearance of a separate self. It is like a whirlpool in water. The whirlpool appears to have form, to have identity, to persist through time. But it is nothing but water moving in a particular pattern. When the movement stops, where does the whirlpool go? It does not go anywhere. It was never anything other than water. In the same way, the ego is nothing but consciousness moving in the pattern of identification, the repetitive arising of the I-thought, claiming to be the author of experience. When this movement is seen clearly, when attention rests in its source, the whirlpool subsides and only the ocean of consciousness remains. Ramana spoke of the heart, not the physical organ but the spiritual heart, on the right side of the chest, as the seat of pure awareness. This is not a location in space, but a metaphor for the source from which the I-thought springs. Every morning when you wake, the first thought that arises is the sense of individual existence, the feeling I am. From this root, the entire tree of personal identity grows. I am this body. I am this person. I am happy, sad, successful, failed. Each thought is a branch extending from the primary I thought. Ramana's method is to trace the I thought back to its source, to dive beneath the surface movement of mind into the stillness from which all thoughts emerge. This is not a doing but an undoing, not an activity but a cessation of activity, a relaxation into what you already are beneath the noise of mental proliferation. The dissolution of the ego is not the destruction of anything real. This must be understood clearly, or fear will arise. The ego defends itself ferociously because it believes that its dissolution means annihilation, death, the end of existence. But the ego is already nothing. It is a phantom, a shadow with no substance. What you fear losing has never existed except as a thought. The death of the ego is not your death. It is the death of a fiction, the collapse of a misidentification. What remains when the ego dissolves is not absence, but fullness. Not emptiness, but the totality of being. The vast spaciousness of consciousness that was always here, but overlooked in favor of the small story of personal self. When Ramana was asked, "Who am I?" he did not answer with concepts. He directed the questioner back to their own being. Find out to whom these thoughts occur. Find out who this I is. The investigation itself is the answer. Not an intellectual answer, but the direct recognition of what you are prior to all thought. This recognition is not an experience. Experiences come and go. They have a beginning and an end. They are objects within consciousness. What you are is the unchanging background in which all experiences appear and disappear. You are the canvas on which the painting of life unfolds. But you are never the painting. The canvas is unaffected by what is painted on it. War or peace, beauty or ugliness. The canvas remains pristine and untouched. The mind cannot grasp this. The mind is an instrument of division, of categorization, of creating boundaries between this and that. It functions through duality, through the sub-W split. When you try to understand non-duality with the mind, you create a concept of non-duality, which is just another object of thought. True non-duality is not a philosophy to believe, or a perspective to adopt. It is the direct seeing that there is no separate one here to adopt anything. The seeing and the seer are not two. Consciousness and its content are not two. The awareness watching this right now, and these words themselves arise together in the seamless fabric of what is. There is no gap, no separation, no distance between awareness and its objects. The appearance of separation is created by thought, by the I thought, claiming to be separate from what it perceives. Ramana taught through silence as much as through words. In his presence, minds became quiet. The constant chattering of thought subsided, and what remained was the palpable presence of pure being. This presence is not something exotic or mystical. It is the most ordinary, most obvious fact of your existence. Right now, before any thought about it arises, there is the simple fact of being. Not being something in particular, not being a person with attributes, but the raw fact of existence itself. This existence is self-luminous. It does not need anything outside itself to validate it or prove it. You do not need to think, I exist, to know that you exist. The knowing of existence is immediate, direct, prior to thought. This is what you are. Not the thought about existence, but existence itself. The consciousness that is aware of being. The ego seeks enlightenment. This is the final trap, the most sophisticated form of identification. The spiritual seeker is still the ego, dressed in new clothes. Instead of seeking wealth or power or pleasure, it seeks awakening. But the one who seeks cannot find what is sought, because the seeker is the obstacle. Enlightenment is not a state to be achieved by a person. It is the recognition that there is no person, that the separate self is an illusion, that what you are has never been bound, and therefore needs no liberation. The search for freedom presupposes bondage. But when was consciousness ever bound? Thoughts come and go. Emotions rise and fall. Bodhis are born and die. But the awareness in which all this occurs remains forever free, forever untouched, forever complete. Ramana's teaching is ruthlessly simple. It strips away every consolation, every spiritual comfort, every philosophical position. There is no path, because there is nowhere to go. There is no practice, because there is nothing to achieve. There is no transformation, because what you are has never changed. The mind rebels against this simplicity. It wants complexity, wants stages of development, wants something to do, but the doing only perpetuates the illusion of the doer. Every effort to become enlightened reinforces the sense of being unenlightened. Every attempt to dissolve the ego is the ego attempting to dissolve itself, which is impossible. The ego cannot commit suicide. It can only be seen as the fiction it is, and in that seeing, its power dissolves like darkness when light is brought into a room. This seeing is not something you do, it happens by grace. But grace is not something external, not some divine intervention from outside. Grace is the natural condition. When the false effort stops, when the seeking mind exhausts itself and falls silent. In that silence, what has always been the case becomes obvious. You are not a fragment of consciousness contained in a body. You are consciousness itself, appearing as body, as mind, as world, as the totality of existence. The entire universe is your self-expression, the play of your own being, not you as a person, but you as the impersonal awareness that has no boundaries and no center. The dissolution of the I is not an event in time. It is outside time because time itself is a concept within consciousness. The now has no duration. The present moment is not a small slice of time between past and future. It is the eternal reality in which the concepts of past and future appear. When you search for this moment, when you try to be present, you create a subtle duality between what is and what should be. But presence is unavoidable. You cannot not be here now. Even the thought of being elsewhere appears here, in this timeless present. What you are is this presence, this awareness, this consciousness that has no beginning and no end, because it is outside the structure of time entirely. Ramana sat in stillness on the mountain of Arunachala, and thousands came seeking answers. Most wanted experiences, wanted visions, wanted confirmation of their spiritual progress. But Ramana offered none of this. He offered only the question, who am I? And the silent presence that demonstrated the answer beyond words. In that presence, it became obvious that the question and the questioner are not two, that the search and the searched are the same consciousness appearing as seeker and sought. The mountain represents the immovable reality of what you are. The devotees climbing the mountain represent thoughts arising and subsiding in consciousness. The mountain remains unmoved regardless of who climbs it or what occurs on its slopes. You are the mountain, not the climber, not the path, not the journey. You are the unchanging awareness in which the entire drama of seeking unfolds. And when this is recognized, not as a concept, but as the living truth of your being, the search ends. Not because you have found something, but because the one who is searching is revealed as a phantom. What remains is the simplicity of being, the ordinary miracle of existence, the self-evident consciousness that was never lost and therefore needs no finding. This is the dissolution of the ego. Better not a practice, but the simple recognition of what has always been true. You are not who you think you are. You are the awareness that knows the thought of who you think you are. And that awareness is infinite, eternal, and free. Rest as that. Be that. You already are.